Excellent. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the penultimate session of the CCA Summer Seminar. My name is Graham Brown. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for HGS, and I'm delighted to be facilitating this afternoon's panel discussion on the topic of going hybrid. The future of work is here. If any of you are unfamiliar with HGS, then just as by way of introduction, we are a leading global provider of outsourced customer experience solutions. We combine people and technology, or as we trademark, bots and brains, to deliver the right outcomes for businesses, their customers, and our employees. And if you want to find out more, then you can find us at hgs.cx. If you're unfamiliar with yourself, and I have met some of you, I'm sure, at different events that CCA have hosted, but I'm a 25-year veteran of the customer experience marketplace. I've held a variety of operational and senior sales roles across the UK and Europe, and have been part of Team HGS for the last 5 years. I'm joined today by three industry heavyweights, and what I would like to do is ask each of them to introduce themselves to the audience and provide a short introduction to their businesses and responsibilities. If I may start by asking Richard Kenny to introduce himself, please.
Hi, good afternoon, Graham. I'm feeling that's a bit harsh, heavyweight. I know lockdown's been tough on us, but heavyweight, crikey, it's not been that bad, has it? Right, thank you, everyone. So as Graham mentioned, I'm Richard. I am from the Poly marketing team. Globally, I look after all of our call center customers from a marketing perspective. So really understanding how customers use our products, what their plans are for the next few years, and then sort of taking those plans into the product portfolio, the messaging, etc. If you're unfamiliar with Poly, we might be a brand new name to you. We are the people that probably provide the headsets that you're wearing. We came out of the merger of Plantronics and Polycom. So we've got that range of devices going from headsets to speakerphones to phones and right through to video cameras now as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Richard. And if I could ask David to introduce himself next, please.
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So David Cousins. I head up both go-to-market and sales for Twilio's contact center propositions for everything pretty much outside of the Americas. Again, similar, I've been in contact center CX since the age of 19, which may look like it was perhaps 2 or 3 years ago. It's been nearer 24 years. Twilio, for those that don't know Twilio, so we run a global platform as a service, essentially enabling people to create the contact center that they want, rather than the contact center that everybody designs on your behalf, used by people like Uber, Deliveroo, Netflix, Airbnb, you name it. But yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and thanks for the opportunity for the introduction.
Excellent. Thank you, David. And Joao, by no means last, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. I've never been called a heavyweight before, too, so I was a bit intimidated with that. So my name is João Gonzalez. I'm the head of international global accounts for EMEA in GoContact. GoContact is a Portuguese company. We also provide a contact center as a service solution, omnichannel, with a strong emphasis also on self-service and AI. I've been selling voice solutions in the last 20 years, contact center solutions for more than I would like to mention. I started, my first job was a PBX pre-sales engineer, and I've been working in several roles, but all related to the industry for my entire professional life.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Joao. And I will change reference to heavyweights to superstars, or whatever you prefer. Okay, so I'll name you Superstar 1, 2, and 3. So thanks very much for those introductions, and we'll get to hear a lot more from the three of you over the next 50 or so minutes. Just so the audience is aware, this is a panel discussion. So I have got a number of questions that I'll be asking to Richard, David, and Joao. But I will leave some time at the end. So should anybody have any questions at the end, then by all means, put them in the chat window and I will try to get to them. I think many of you that are joining us today will be familiar with the work that's already been undertaken by CCA and the work to understand the future way of working. I think many of you will have participated in the customer service and CX future scenarios workshops that's been run by Anne-Marie and her team since the start of the year. As the title suggests, these workshops enable participants to share their thoughts on what the future of CX looks like from a customer, employee and business perspective. I think over the last couple of days, we've heard from various other people and businesses around what the future has entailed for us. During today's panel discussion, we're going to build on one of the streams that was covered in the CX future scenarios. And it generated a lot of interest from the participants, which was entitled "The World of Work is Changing." And during this session, it was discussed the ways in which businesses and their employees were adapting to what was referred to as the new normal. Since that session was held back in April, I think if anybody looks at the news, we'll have seen more and more businesses coming out and making statements regarding their future operating models. To call some of those out, and there's a huge list, but I'll only pick out a few here to share with you. Lloyds Banking Group came out and said that they expected to reduce commercial office space by 20% over the next 18 months. HSBC came out and said something similar, but they said it was going to reduce by 40% as more and more people chose to work from home rather than in the office. Aviva came out and made a similar statement regarding their offices across the UK. And I've got a quote here from them that I thought could be quite interesting. The way we use our office space is changing. Time shared between office and home will depend on circumstances and preferences. Their plan is to combine or reduce office space with the intention to invest in its sites and provide a more vibrant, inspiring and flexible workspace. And I think there's been some of that theme coming out over the last 2 days as well. Interestingly, not everybody has seen this as utopia. Not everybody has bought into home working. I'll use the example of Goldman Sachs. Their boss, David Solomon, came out and rejected remote working as the new normal, labelled it an aberration. And instead he said, I think for a business like ours, which is innovative, collaborative, apprenticeship culture, this is not ideal for us. And it's not a new normal. It's an aberration that we're going to correct as soon as possible. Very, very strong words from the head of Goldman Sachs. And if you read the news and have seen their name in there, I think their junior bankers might disagree with some of his sentiment there, but I won't dwell on that just in case there is anybody from Goldman Sachs in the audience today. Continuing on with the theme though, in terms of what we are witnessing in the marketplace, there was a recent survey undertaken by the London Chamber of Commerce. They reached out to approximately 520 businesses. And almost half of those businesses said they expect work to continue from home for at least 5 days or up to 5 days a week after the pandemic finishes, which will provide a very interesting dynamic, I think, back in the City of London as more and more office space frees up. LinkedIn did some similar research and found that 2/3 of UK workers said their employer expecting them to return to the office, with Mondays and Tuesdays set to be the busiest office days. But almost half said they wanted to split their time between home and the office. A quote from their UK country manager, Janine Chamberlain, said, hybrid working will also help open up jobs to people who may have previously been locked out of them due to location, disability or caregiving responsibilities, which I thought was very, very interesting, especially when I think about my colleagues at HGS, because we very much subscribe to the new way of thinking. And we did a poll across our UK workforce. It is approximately 2,500 strong, and over 95% wanted to remain working from home or adopt some form of hybrid working, which to a certain extent was quite lucky because we'd already started making tracks to introduce a hybrid operating model across our business, creating what we've referred to as the HGS work cloud, which will allow people to work 1 day a week in the office and 4 days a week at home. And we're changing all of our contact center environments into what we're now referring to as engagement hubs. So rather than being a place just to work, they're going to be split 50-50 between work and collaboration, which we're really, really excited about. So look, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to start to pass over to my panel in just a moment. But, you know, on the back of all of this opportunity and the expectations of employees to be able to continue a great work-life balance, there was something that came as a little bit of a red flag, I think, earlier this week, and it came from the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. And they made the statement that about 6 million professional jobs in the UK could be done from anywhere, risk being outsourced to other countries. It's warned that the mass experiment with remote working means that companies concerned about cost could decide to keep just core staff needed for in-person collaboration and decision-making. Okay, very, very interesting. But we've got to remember Tony Blair also said Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and that turned out to be not correct either. But with that said, I'd like to start to reintroduce the panel. And if I could start with David, based on your experience, do you believe hybrid working is here to stay? And what will the people element of future working look like?
Yeah, I mean, in short, absolutely. Again, similar research that we've done, and I only look at our customer base, would suggest that, we all know for the past 16 months that over 90% of advisors have worked from home, and it's worked. I mean, I'm in my converted garage right now. I haven't met probably 50% of my colleagues that have been hired in the past 15 months, and it works incredibly well. About 40% of the advisors that we spoke to said that their organization will encourage them to work at home at some point. And I think about 70% suggested that they would like the flexibility to work at home at least some of the time. I only look at my next door neighbors. One works for a bank and one works for the job centre, and they both work from home, and they have the opportunity to go into the office into Manchester on occasion. But actually, seeing how they juggle childcare and seeing how they juggle other things, this has just opened up a whole raft of flexibility. So I think, the jury's out, it works well. I wouldn't quite go as far as aberration. But in terms of, what does the sort of future hold from a people perspective? I think it's, to your point, actually, it's flexibility. We've got a much broader catchment. I've lived in the Northwest most of my adult life. I've worked in the CX industry for that same length of time, and the two go hand in hand because that's where the hubs are. The Northwest, the Northeast, 6% of Scottish population work within the CX industry. I think now we've got a catchment that's much broader than that across the country. Interestingly, to your point, all Twilio folks are allowed to work anywhere for 3 weeks, up to 3 weeks. So I could arguably, if we could travel, go on holiday somewhere and work for 3 weeks from Spain, Portugal, you name it. So again, that degree of flexibility means that I get a lot more life choice, as does my team. So in short, absolutely, I think this is, the way to go. And people have recognized that, human beings like the fact that they don't have to spend a lot of time traveling in the morning, the expense that goes with that. They can get up and do the work that they want to be able to do. Clearly, there's challenges with that. And I think that's, the opportunity that we need to address now.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, David. Really interesting points that you make there. I'd just like to maybe just open it up to Richard as well here, just to get your view on this. And also maybe just to pose the question around the type of roles as well, because it's all very well us sitting here as managers and senior managers within organizations, but within the CX space, there's a lot of people that are at the front line that perhaps relatively junior. And do you think the same opportunities will be afforded to them?
Well, yes, hybrid working's here to stay, but no, I don't think we should make it a forced way of working for our people. As you point out, customer service is the first step on the journey in a company for many people. And I bet you, without telling you, there's quite a chunk of your workforce that are actually sofa surfing at the moment. And, that's the sort of the lowest level. They're not going to be able to work from home. The people who are on that next stage up, they're sharing a house. They don't want to be working from home if they're fighting for the kitchen table first thing in the morning and trying to find the best space in the house that isn't noisy. So one of the big things that I talk about is that, yes, hybrid working is a really good solution, but it's got to be a personal choice. If you want to come into the office, we've got to make that space for you to come into that office. And we're getting a lot of people actually say we want to work in these third spaces, the coffee shops, etc. I don't think that's feasible, frankly. I think that's a security nightmare for most call centers. But what people are looking for is a nice office space, something to draw them in. They want maybe a good coffee shop that's better than what they've got at home, a good place to get lunch that's better than what they've got at home. So actually, it's down to us as employers to create those office experiences. If we want to be a Goldman Sachs and say people must come into the office, well, actually, make your offices good. I'm not going to come in. I'm going to go to another company if you can't make that office experience good for me. So I think that, yeah, it's definitely here to stay, but we've got to start treating our people as individuals here and saying, okay, one size doesn't fit all across the call center. We've got to give you choices as to where you work and how you work.
Lovely. And I think I've got a title for a new book, Homeworking, Fighting for the Kitchen Table. Hopefully you don't mind if I use that. Joao, you might have a slightly different perspective being on the continent. Are you experiencing the same things in Portugal and any of the other markets that you're working in?
Yeah, pretty much. We've had most of the people now working in direct customer contact working from home. And a lot of companies, ours included, has basically changed the way that they will go on forward, and they will remain on this hybrid model where you can go to the office if you choose, but you can also work from home. I think the model has its challenges, especially for new hires, but it is definitely the way forward. And I'm thinking contact centers and the real estate that they pay for. I'm thinking agent retention, where the commute to work is probably one of the factors that causes more rotation. I spent some years in Latin America working in the contact center there, and it was a major issue. They had 15-20% a month agent rotation, and agents would change jobs just because the commute would be shorter in the new job, because they basically get paid the same everywhere. So it could be a critical factor for contact centers. But I also agree with Richard when he says it's not for everybody. No, it's not. Some people don't have the environment or the space in their houses to work from home. It will get better because kids have gotten back to school. So houses are being remodeled. I know IKEA is making a lot of money selling home furniture in the last year or so. I myself have been a customer there, but it's a mix. It's mixed. It's here to stay. Actually, it's been very common in countries like the US for many years now. But for us Europeans, I think it's here to stay. It will require adjustment. It will require a change of perspective in some things, but it's definitely the future.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Joao. And I want to go back to Richard, actually, in terms of something that you were talking about there around the positives of the new way of working, the hybrid operating, but also some of the negatives. So, with this displacement of work, if you like, could it be detrimental to employees? Are we at risk potentially of seeing 6 million jobs leave the country because home working has been so successful and it can be done anywhere? Or is it going to create a lot of new opportunities for employees?
It really depends on the culture of your company. If you are not fully invested in customer service, if it's not a priority for you, you're going to chase the lowest cost possible. And those jobs that you probably got in the UK will disappear off to initially Eastern Europe and then possibly the Far East. So for employers, employees in that particular area, yeah, it's going to be a lowest common denominator approach. What you lose there is that culture, and that sort of that connection between the employee and where the customers are based, and you lose the ability to provide a good experience. But where I kind of see hopefully most companies going, especially the sort of people that are listening in today, is that actually we're going to open this up to people. I've done quite a few conversations with the NTI in the US, the National Telecommuting Institute, that look at getting disabled people back into the workforce. And this widespread acceptance of home working has suddenly opened up that market to people that can't commute, that can't get into an office. So there's this huge area of a workforce that we've suddenly opened it up to. And also, if you kind of think of it as a second benefit as well, is that part-time working, for example, has been really difficult if you've had to come into the office. This whole split shifts approach, commuting in the morning or in the evening. Again, if we got people that only want to work part-time, we've made it easier for those people to get into the workforce. So I think if you're a positive culture company, looking after your employees, trying to find the best customer experience, you've now got the whole of the UK as an untapped workforce available to you. You've got the ability to diversify your workforce as much as you want to see fit as well. So I think for those companies that are looking for it, this is a really good opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And just thinking through something that was discussed on one of the earlier sessions, we were talking about the digital innovation that's come through at the same time. So as much as we have, as all businesses pivoted into home working, organizations have also embraced digital change as well and tried to promote as much self-serve as possible as well. So with all of that innovation, I'm gonna position this question to Joao, if you don't mind. you know, with all of the technology innovation that's been undertaken over the last 15 months, and the fact that that's removed a lot of the noise, the low-hanging fruit that exists within the customer service domain, do you think it's going to change the dynamic of the contact center? Are we going to create more specialist roles? Are we going to see the end of mass recruitment and large-scale contact centers?
Definitely yes, mostly because of what's been happening with AI. I think the agents in contact centers are moving up on the scale of values, on their level of engagement in what the company is doing, mainly because AI will take over not their entire jobs, but probably the most repetitive part of their jobs. And AI is really the area that has been going through a lot of changes in the last couple of years. That on one side. On the other side, if you have a remote workforce, you will benefit, obviously, more experienced people. So older guys like ourselves or myself can have a little bit more opportunities because of that. In general, I would say technology has helped this process, not with the exception of AI, and obviously with the exception of working remotely, which is something that is possible, much more than things that you can do now that you couldn't do before. It is how easy can you do them now? It's mostly that. I think we've seen an explosion of cloud offerings, which for us, it wasn't good because we were already had that offer, an explosion of quality management, e-learning. It's now easier for companies, and easier, I mean, less expensive, less time consuming, less resource consuming, less infrastructure meddling. It's now easier to go into to invest in those technologies that you really need to handle this new reality.
So you've seen a lot more competition then over the last 15 months as organized.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Technology.
I think all technology providers either were already in the cloud and they gained more customers, or had to, become cloud providers, and they're now trying to steal customers away from us again. But I think that affects everybody. I've always been in a competitive world, and you must make the best of it.
Absolutely. There's always going to be competition, but hopefully at the same time as the competition increases, the market size increases, so you don't see your slice of the pie reduce. I am going to ask in a moment David to come in as well and comment on that as well, because I think he'll have an opinion on what you've just said there, Joao. But before I do, we have got a poll that we wanted to run with you as well. And this is specifically on specialist roles. So we'd love to get the feedback from the audience as to whether or not you think we'll require more specialist roles in the future. So Pauline has just put that up on screen. If you could all vote now, it would be appreciated. And then David, as you come back, perhaps you could also make some comments based on the results that we're seeing as well from this poll.
Yeah, sure.
We've not done this before, so I don't know how long this is going to take. Okay. Right, David, over to you.
I mean, I could just simply agree, couldn't I? Or be really pedantic and say no, but I think, I am in agreement with that. And again, I think it's back to what Richard was saying. I mean, now we've got more catchment for sure. I think specialism's a requirement in a lot of cases. Again, if we've got quite a close-knit sort of community and hubs, then of course, specialism will often much more difficult. But certainly, broadening and understanding. And I think actually at the point, as you said at the very outset, we did it, it worked, we got everybody at home. We're now at a point in refining how that might work moving forward, and understanding actually what's the future of the customer journey and the customer experience moving forward as well. You introduce things like AI, you introduce things like automation, then of course, inherently you're left with a lot more complexity in some of the interactions that need to be dealt with by a human being, and therefore, speciality sort of comes to the fore. And I have a humble belonging, I suppose. My working career started in the contact center, and therefore, I've been the advisor, I've been the team lead, and very much feel, and I know we've talked about this at the CCA before, but feel that, you know, there is a professionalism in an advisor, and it's not just anymore a job to do while studying or a job to do elsewhere. So actually having specialism will also open up roles for people that will want to sort of, again, continue the career that we've all been in at some stage in our life. So specialism, I think, is definitely here to stay. It's how we, I guess, broaden that specialism and collaborate potentially in an environment that isn't an office and isn't a contact center of old. It will be
Graham, I'm going to sound a note of caution on those poll results. I think, you know, with AI self-service taking more and more of the simple questions, it seems a nice easy route to sort of push employees into specialist roles. But what we run the risk of doing is making it much more difficult for our customer to find that specialism. You know, at the moment, if you've got one phone number, you come through to a team of generalists, they're able to answer the question. What do you do now? Do you have multiple phone numbers? Do you go back to the old days of 6x6 IVRs where it was a nightmare to try and get to somebody? Or do we have sort of some better front end that enables you to find that exact specialist that you're looking for? Because otherwise, if we train people up to be a specialist and a call comes through to them, it might be the wrong thing for them. They might spend 50% of their time on calls, 50% of the time trying to find the right specialist within the organization. So we can't just create this pool of hyper specialists on their own without changing everything else around them to make it easy to find the right specialist.
I completely agree with you, Richard. I think there is clearly a risk there of creating silos and that being at the detriment to the customer experience. Again, I think on the earlier session that we had today, there was a conversation or a comment regarding the ability to seamlessly pivot out of a technology loop into a live agent interaction. I think it's probably there that's the critical piece here, Richard, based on what you've just said there. So, you know, a consumer goes through a journey, but when the technology cannot support them and give them the outcome they look for, and it needs to go into a live agent interaction, how do we make sure that it goes to the right individual with the right set of skills that's going to be able to deal with that problem and understand the journey they've already been on? And yeah, I think that's a question that a lot of organizations are looking at today. And I think we've probably got quite a few examples amongst ourselves of organizations that don't do that well. And I'm going to hold myself back by saying anything, but if you look at my LinkedIn feed, you might see a few names on there. So look, thank you both for your comments there. If I may continue on with yourself there, Richard, as well, you know, technology has clearly played a critical role as we enter into this new way of working, the hybrid way of working. And, you know, if I go back 10 years, technology was always an enabler. Today it is seen very much as a driver. How are we going to maintain the humanity in hybrid? You know, how are we going to keep the people engaged? How are we going to make it a job that just doesn't feel that they are polishing a robot?
Do you want me to get on my soapbox here?
If you've got one, then by all means.
Stop calling them agents, for goodness sake, all right? If we want to be talking about humanity, these are people, these are our advisors, they're our employees, they're our workforce. You know, I don't want to denigrate the previous session. You know, Stuart and Peter did a good job there, but, you know, talking about live agents and human agents made me feel like kind of there wasn't much of a dividing line between our technology and our people. And I've always had that feeling that we have the wrong title for people. And it starts from that point. So if we want to, you know, employ people, trust those people. If they're good enough to be put in front of customers, trust them. Okay. Nobody tells me what to do on a security briefing. Nobody tells me how to interact when I do these sort of sessions because they trust me. Why don't we do the same thing for our people? That for me is putting the humanity back into hybrid working, is treating people as individuals. If they're good enough to come and work for you and be in front of your best asset, which is always your customers, trust them to do that. Don't take things away from their role, like taking payments away from them when they're at home or giving them strict instructions on how to behave when they're on video chats. Hire the right people, trust them to do the job. That puts the humanity back in those people.
Very passionate. I like it. Joao, David, any additions you'd like to make there?
Yeah, I would probably add, when we talk about specialist roles, going back a little bit, but you know, in line with what Richard has said, it's not so much you are specialists, it's that you are entering on the customer journey a little further ahead on the needs scale. So you will probably not handle that many repetitive calls, you will enter either because the customer has reached the point that, you know, automation can't help him anymore, or that's probably more the case, you are being put in touch with customers that do not like self-service, that will probably more difficult customers. So it's not as much that you have new skills, but you are higher up on the skill level where you are. And that is probably the most critical question, I think.
So that may actually take me nicely onto my next question, actually. It is for you, Joao, and I'm going to quote GoContact website, if I may.
GoContact.
It says on there, if you want to reduce technological complexity in your contact center operation and boost control, performance and efficiency, you came to the right place. Okay.
Okay.
So with
you've
that in
done your
mind,
homework.
you know, in addition to providing the ability to work from home, how has your technology helped to facilitate hybrid working and keep the advisors connected and feeling part of the brand that they represent?
Okay, there are several things we do that have contributed for us to have especially a lot of success in these pandemic years. Probably one of the most, well, first and foremost, the platform in itself, it is a networking platform where you can chat and interact with all your, you know, colleagues. So it's not just the contact center solution, it's also the, you know, the backbone of the communication solution in the office. Second, and that has to do with the reduction of complexity, we can provide a single customer view. You can actually look up the entire customer journey, present and past, within our platform, which makes it easy for companies to displace their agents at home because they no longer need, well, in most cases, no longer need access to the entire information system of the company. So that's probably one of the most critical reasons. Also, when we talk about reducing complexity, we basically talk about being able to have your own team, and I'm talking your own team as your customer team, perform most of the programming and configuring that you need to do on your platform. So it makes it much easier for you to change, to manage, to measure, and to adjust than when you are fully dependent on a provider that's probably, you know, dealing with a lot of service calls and a lot of customers because, you know, everybody is doing the same thing. So that probably has been our greatest benefits for our customer base in the last year or so. We've tried to make as much use of that as possible. We've been getting obviously a lot of requests, giving a lot of attention to monitoring, quality management, e-learning. E-learning has become a major investment within GoContact for the for customers to be able to train their agents without having them displaced to the office, and dashboards, real-time reports, anything that has to do with the fact that you now have to manage the group of people that work for you. If you're a supervisor and you're not looking at them, you have to really look at what they're doing, know what they're doing, being able to help them, and obviously to measure them.
And if I may just follow on from that as well, we talk about kind of the control and making sure they're doing the right things at the right time. How are we replicating the social elements of working within an office? You know, it's very easy when you're sitting with a team and you can have a conversation and you've got, you know, visuals all around you reinforcing the brand and the culture and all of those good things, and you can socialize post work. All of those things have gone. So how is technology helping there as well to create, I suppose, the risk of disenfranchisement by that employee base?
Excellent question. Well, first and foremost, you need to give the agents and the supervisors the same experience, whether they're working from home or in the office. Obviously, when you're home, you don't have the visual and also the audio control of what your guys are doing. You lose that. That's a definite fact that cannot be hidden. You can measure, you can listen to calls, you can you have to invest more in post-call customer satisfaction inquiries to make sure that the calls are being handled properly. But you will never have the same level of engagement. But on the other hand, if your contact center is too big, and if your supervisors have to handle a lot of agents, they will probably not have the control that they actually think they have over their groups. So it's it's a push and pull situation. You do have to make sure that you are measuring, make sure that you are supporting, coaching the people that work for you, training them properly, measuring them, and making sure that they perform as you want, but also being considerate of the fact that they're working unattended for most of the time.
Makes sense. So what we're saying there is we need the measurement because we perhaps lose some of the control, but we can't lose sight of the fact they're human beings and we need to deal with them as such and create an environment that they feel respected and looked after and understood.
Definitely.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I've got another poll question that's going to come up, but I'm just going to call David back into the conversation, if I may. My belief, and I'm sure that you will support this, David, is that technology has really helped us over the last 15 plus months. If it wasn't for cloud-based technology and the ability to pivot so quickly, I think there would be a lot of organizations that would really have struggled. Do you feel that most of the organizations you work with see you and the sector you work in as being an enabler and helping them to navigate through this crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, agility's been key. Nobody could have predicted this need to send people home. We found, organizations of 1,100 users being home within, 6, 7, 8, 9 days. Web chat being up and running in some cases in less than 22 hours. Again, it was through necessity, and these weren't necessarily the most polished solutions ever, because actually necessity bore out the need to do something quickly. And in a lot of cases, I think, the shortage of laptops in the UK was a bigger issue than using a cloud platform to deliver contact back into, a home working environment. I think just, I guess, a couple of points on that. I mean, absolutely agree with Richard. I think empowerment is really important. Absolutely agree with Joe in terms of having the tools and making sure that there's some consistency in that. And that's what we're starting to now see. The sort of speed bit, the getting all the things working within that environment, within a Chrome browser and a laptop are kind of key. But now it's the refinement of that. And that comes down to knowledge and information and actually the benefits of hybrid, in the sense that if I have the opportunity to go into the office for a coaching session and a one-to-one and some training immersion and some camaraderie, but at the same time I can take that away with me, knowing that the tools that I've got are useful and consolidated. I mean, look, we're still in a world even now where most organizations have got 5, 6, 7, 8 applications that an individual has to use on a regular basis. And I'm now in a world potentially where I can't put my hand up and my supervisor that would normally sit at the bank of desks on the end can come and give me a hand. So we've got to rationalize that workspace, because let's be honest, and I'm an uber nerd, as you might be able to see behind me, we're surrounded by tech at home. And therefore there's now an expectation that, the job that we do also considers that, and obviously considers the information that I might need to be able to do my job properly. But it is about empowerment, I think, and it's about addressing that need now that the speed and agility bit has been done. And I think we've all proven that. Again, a recent survey, say recent, probably about 6 months old now, suggested that through necessity, contact center tech has moved forward by about 6 years in the space of the 15 months that we've all been going through. So I think that's been the proving ground. It's now an opportunity to refine it.
That is a lovely segue into our second and final poll question as well, I think. So, Pauline, you're already on cue. Yes. Will technology act as an enabler or an obstacle to implementing a new operating model post-pandemic? And if you put obstacle, then Richard, Joao, and David are both going to, or all three are going to contact you after today's session. And while people are voting, just to let you know, we are starting to get some comments through on the chat. So I'm trying to keep this all going. We'll leave a few minutes at the end of today's session to try and address some of the questions that are coming through But Bernard Mooney wanted to say, well said to Richard, I think based on his support and protection of our advisors. Okay, let's see if we've got the results through. Okay, 7, one person. That one person's going to get a lot of phone calls, I think, over the coming weeks. But that's interesting. David, again, if you want to comment on those, please feel free.
Yeah, no, I love that. The fact that that's the weighted answer, and you know, technology is the enabler in every sort of sense of the word. I only look back at, you know, again, some of the organisations that we support, like Just Eat and Deliveroo and QVC, all people that were innately busy, and all of a sudden, you know, we all used them pretty much every other day during lockdown because we had to. It absolutely enabled a lifestyle and filled a gap in that regard. I think, you know, it's choice as well. We've always, prior to this, I mean, 70% of the contact center market from a technology perspective was still very much on premise. And I think that was the first challenge that everybody faced was, how do I now get this bit of plastic to work in someone's house or someone's kitchen table or whatever that might be? And technology obviously came in and resolved that in most cases. And people found some amazing and weird and wonderful ways of addressing that. But, you know, tech is the enabler in every other sort of guise of the world. So why not for the CX industry? So I'm glad everybody agrees.
Everybody bar one.
Everybody bar one.
Excellent. Okay. Look, I'm conscious of the time. We're 15 minutes to the top of the hour. So, and I did say I wanted to leave some time at the end for questions to the panel. I'm not going to stop just here. I just want to just bring something in and then let you all have a few closing words to the audience. Again, I love bringing in insight from third-party sources, and there was something shared by Bloomberg last week that spoke about the number of businesses that expect people to be home working in the future, and it was 46% of businesses expected staff to work at least 4 to 5 days a week from home, which I thought was very, very interesting. Now, when I look at the stats when this was broken down, they were talking about they expected to see people back in the office, maybe 9% 1 day a week, 20% 2 days a week, 20% 3 days a week. Sorry, the other way around, working from home, 9% 1 day a week, 20% 2 days a week, 20% 3 days a week, 11% 4 days a week. So, I mean, if we add all of that together, what does that give us? 40, 51, 60% of all businesses expect their staff to be working at home for at least, a day or two a week. And we're very much in the same camp. Our assumption here is that, our employees are going to be working 4 days a week at home, albeit that was perhaps one of the less popular choices when I look at the research. But I'm interested in the views of the three of you here in terms of what you think that optimal balance will look like moving forward. We've all said hybrid is here to stay. What is it going to look like? Is it 1 day a week at home, or is it 4 days a week at home? And how can technology and how can your businesses help to deliver a consistent experience? And not just for the employee, but also for the customers that they support. And I'll ask Richard to go first, and then I'll follow through with Joao and David.
All right, I'm going to take you off at a little tangent here, Graham. Let's not make hybrid working a distraction. Okay, we've all said it's going to be here. We've all got a roughly good idea of how to do it, but it's solving an internal problem. It's not going to benefit the customer. What we really need to do is quickly accept hybrid working and go back to solving the problems that our customers want. They want to know how to get hold of us through whatever channels, and for that interaction to be a really good experience. And part of that might be a quick experience, part of it might be an emotional experience, etc. But let's not make hybrid working a distraction that takes us away from focusing on the customer experience.
Thank you for that. Joao, do you want to go next, and do you want to comment on anything Richard's just said there?
No, it's an excellent point what Richard said. True. We're talking about the way we work, and we should be worried with the way that we serve our customers. So the way we work is more how we manage our companies internally, how we reduce costs without sacrificing productivity, how we reach broader sales force, how we improve employee satisfaction because we allow them to, lose less time on commutes. I think ideally, if any CEO in the world would prefer to have their employees close at hand, it is what it is, and people of of all generations have been raised on the principle that you have to look at what you guys are doing to make sure that they're doing the right work and in the right amount. But the fact is that, technology changes, and situations like the one the world is going through force the usage of technology, because this is nothing new. We've had the ability to work from home for some years now. It was probably more expensive than it is now, more difficult to implement. CEOs and directors would probably, enter into a panic state because of that, but it has been possible. It has been possible for a lot of years. We just, circumstances change that. And many companies are looking at their savings, at their potential savings, at the fact, and I'm sure that, I'm not sure for all companies, but I'm sure that for IT companies, like the ones in this panel, the productivity has increased. I think most people are putting in more hours now that they work from home than they used to put before. Traffic stopped being an excuse and a deterrent. So there's a lot of good things to take from that. Probably in the contact center environment, it's probably one of the most tricky ones, because of the fact that your workforce is, for the most of it, a little bit less experienced than what you would like. So that's the challenge. But each company knows what's best for them. And I think the future will bring us, we will find companies probably degrading their customer service because most of their guys are working from home. You will have companies improving the customer service because they're doing it the right way. And you will have customers having difficulties in hiring people because they don't provide home working. That's something that's probably not going to go back. After this, and especially after my son's generation has been looking at this and they're now entering the job market. Well, my son's going to be a doctor, so he'll definitely not be working from home, but I'm talking about the generation. They will probably not accept if you have to go to the office every day of the week. They'll probably don't want that. So it's something we have to take into consideration.
I think you'll find your son might well be working from home.
As a doctor, I'm not sure.
In modern medicine, I think he may well be working in an office and never need to touch or feel any of his patients ever again. Hopefully that won't be the case, but you never know. And David, can I ask you just to maybe close off this conversation, and I'll just pick up any of the questions that are outstanding from the audience?
Yeah, great. I mean, I think, it's been a really good point. I mean, hybrid working is a kind of byproduct, a logistical challenge that we had to address, and therefore it sort of opened everybody's eyes up to, future possibilities. But actually, to the point from the gents, there's no forgetting the other work that's gone into this through the past 15 months. Demands for organizations have actually increased in a lot of cases. The number of people available is reduced through furlough schemes. So people have had to find really innovative ways of just, again, servicing customers in their time of need, be that holiday refunds, be that contact and trace and making sure that we're trusted, be that, other things that have happened within that period of time, and just changing the way that we do business. So, digital channels have gone up. People have had more opportunity to be innovative anyway, as well as now looking at, desktop environments and looking at the information that we deliver to people, because we can no longer send 1,000,001 Excel spreadsheets around the business every day in the hope that people will understand them. All of that has absolutely changed. And yes, the ideal is you get some choice around going to the office, or you get some choice around staying at home. And I agree. I think there will start to be an expectation that home working is part of my contract. And Twilio in particular have got, new home working guidelines that have been evolved over the past sort of 15 months, which will continue to stay because productivity for sure has increased. So I think, absolutely, hybrid working is here. We can call it what we will, but we've also got to remember the amazing achievements that people have made by just keeping the lights on for the past fairly decent, significant period of time.
Absolutely. I think we most definitely should celebrate the successes as they were during an incredibly difficult period. But we now need to look for the future and make sure we're doing the right things by our employees and by our customers as well. Couldn't agree more with you there. Thank you for that, David. Now, just looking, a few minutes left. I did say we'd take questions from the floor. There has been one that's been sitting in the chat window for a little while, not necessarily specific to hybrid working, but one that I think is an interesting question. Do you think that given the cyber attacks and cloud issue recently relating to news feeds, that companies may look at what risk may be associated with cloud-based technologies? And I look at, well, actually, David, it might be a good one for you to take at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's absolutely, a duty of care. There's absolutely security implications that need to be considered so that, again, we build trust with people. I mean, I think back to, the contact and trace use case that was literally born overnight, never seen before. And the mere fact that everything in this world seemingly provides an opportunity for nefarious individuals to take advantage of services and misinformation that took place as part of that. We went a long ways to producing and ensuring with governing bodies throughout Europe, throughout the world, that our numbers, for example, were trusted. So if you got a message that you'd been in close proximity, you knew full well that it came from a trusted source rather than from, an individual that's clearly trying to make some money out of you. So yeah, I mean, I think it will highlight a need for some due diligence, but at the same time, particularly anybody that sits within the cloud has a duty to ensure that data is secure and data is, and remains to be so, and no secure sensitive data, can make its way out. But also it's that trust in the way that those things are delivered so that your recipient, your customer knows full well that this communication is coming from you and aren't just simply confused by misinformation, which I think we've all seen far too much of again this past few months in and around that. So yeah, I agree that there will be a little bit of a risk in the sense that people's eyes will be open to that, but I don't think the message changes in the sense that we've all gone a long ways to make sure that cloud works and cloud is secure and cloud is trusted.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, David. I don't know if there's any other questions from the audience. If there are, please put it into the chat window. I'll give it 30 seconds, see if anything else comes through. If it doesn't, I will close things off. Like we should have the countdown clock ticking through right now, but I won't make the noise. I want to make the noise, but I'm not going to make the noise. Okay, so look, I think we'll leave it there. What's left for me to say is, first and foremost, thank you to Richard, Joao, and David. Appreciate your time, appreciate your thoughts, appreciate your insight, appreciate your passion. I hope that everybody who has been listening in today and watching has found the session enjoyable, interesting, newsworthy. Please get it out on Twitter and LinkedIn if you've heard some interesting news bites that you'd like to share. I think from my perspective, I was trying to take some notes as we were talking, but it was very difficult to listen and write. I'm not very good at multitasking, but just some of the things that I want to just reiterate. Fighting for the kitchen table. I've taken that. That's the name of my book. Please, nobody else use that. I think there are clearly going to be pros for employees as we move into the new way of working. And I think it's going to open up the inclusivity, if you like, and access for roles to a variety of people from all different parts of the UK and all different socio-economic demographics. We're going to see roles move up the value chain, which I hope actually will lead to increases in salary that come through as well, because I think that's important as well to get the rewards for the work that you do. Word of caution on specialism. We need to make sure that we have the right people available to support the customers at the time that they're needed. Measurement is critical in the new way of working, but we shouldn't be at the detriment to the human touch. And based on the last comment that Richard made, hybrid working is part of the solution, but it's not the solution to great CX. And with that said, I want to say thanks again to everybody that's been involved. And I'm going to hand back over now to Anne-Marie and the team to close out this year's CCA Summer Convention.